specialist here at Verdure Healthcare Consultancy. So first of all, thank you so much everybody for your attendance in my webinar. So I know it has been some time since we had our last seminar or webinars or any events with our panel partners. So that's why we've decided to set up FB Lives to give you more insights and education about fertility with the safety of your own home. So today I am going to talk to you about a very interesting topic, and that is how can Malaysia's fertility technology help to secure your children's health and future. Now, you might have a question, can Malaysia's IVF technology and reproductive technologies help to secure one's health, the children's health or the baby's future? Well, I should say yes, Malaysia boleh, and today I'm going to tell you all about it. Now, first of all, let me begin with a question. What does your perfect baby look like? In other words, what's your definition of a perfect baby? Would you like it to be a baby boy, baby girl? Do you want them to grow as, an engineer, doctor, architect, lawyer, if you are more of a traditional parent? Or would you just tell me, Adam, for goodness sake, I just want my child to be fit and healthy and grow up in a safe environment? And if that's you, you have attended the correct webinar. So, let me begin with a story. Now, it looks like, something very technical, but don't worry, I'm going to tell you about it. So now, for the sake of privacy, let's just call this couple, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Chen is a very typical couple that faced infertility. So what happened was that they have been married for 5 years, and throughout this period they have been trying to conceive, and of course there weren't any results at all. They tried to take a lot of supplements, they tried holistic healing and all that sort of stuff, but still, as years has gone by, they just couldn't wait anymore. They went ahead with IUI, okay, but obviously that didn't have any results. So what they did was they went straight to IVF instead. Now, for those who don't know about IVF, let me give you a bit of insight about what exactly is an IVF. Now, usually what happens is that we will try to stimulate the eggs in the lady, all right? So in order to get hopefully an amount of 10 to 20 eggs, right? That would be a good amount. And then on the same day, the husband will be producing sperm samples so that the sperm and the egg can be fused together in the medical laboratory, right? So this process is called fertilization. Now, when the sperm and egg fuse together, so this thing, okay, it's called a blastocyst. Right? Don't worry about these jargons. You don't really have to remember them. But anyway, when these blastocysts are being made, they will go into a culture process. Okay, so what does that mean? So it means that these blastocysts will be put in an artificial womb, which is inside the medical lab, right? So they will be there for around 5 to 6 days. That will be a good, result. So obviously, for example, if you put 10 in there, some of them might just, not pass the test, and there could be half of them, be disposed. But anyway, for the rest of those, there will be an option for you. Would you need to go for a genetic test for these, what is now from blastocysts become embryos? So now embryo is the word that I want you to remember because it is almost the earliest form of a baby. Okay, so embryo. Now, you have two options. One is to implant these embryos straight away into your womb, okay? And option two would be to go through genetic tests for these embryos. And now, please be reminded, not everyone should be going for this process because the nature itself is a little bit risky in terms of the impact done to the embryo itself. Have a look at this picture. picture. So this is the embryo. Inside there, you know, a couple of circles, they are the cells. Now this is the needle. So what is it doing is that it's trying to extract the cells from this embryo to test for the genes and DNA inside it. Right. So coming back to our story about Mr. and Mrs. Chen. So this is the report for the embryo genetic testing. Now the fancy term for this is pre-implantation genetic testing. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Chen end up spending 55,000 ringgit throughout this IVF cycle, including this test. So let's have a look what they have got here. Right, so this is the main result part, and what I want you to really focus on is this, the grade. You might not be able to see it clearly, but let me read it out to you. The grade is G. Okay, the embryo grade is G. So tell me, okay, what are your thoughts about the quality of this embryo? Now, if this is your SPM grade, then it's not very nice. But in fact, in terms of IVF, a G means good. It's a good grade embryo. There's literally a VG, which means very good. So that means that they have only ended up with one embryo. But let's travel here. Let's fast forward here. So what's the result? What is 45, comma, plus 11Q 23.3, and then there's another comma, and then the last bit is minus 22. What on earth are these? Okay, in summary, it means that there have been, you know, some extra DNA, which is not good. I'll explain later on why. And then there are some DNAs missing as well. And then, but the main problem is this one, plus 11Q 23.3. It means blood cancer. Now, friends, if you know that you'll be getting an embryo with blood cancer, this is a horrible disease which is very difficult to treat, would you still put this embryo into your womb? And I guess, you know, almost 100% of you would say, for goodness sake, no. Now, don't you feel a bit ironic because the grading is good, but on the other hand, there is blood cancer in the baby. So how does this, you know, go about? So have a think about this, friends. For a couple that hasn't gone through IVF, they might have a baby with blood cancer. Now, so that's why we need genetic testing before all of these to understand whether or not the parents themselves have this kind of a hidden gene in them. And so that means that not everybody should be going for, you know, pre-implantation genetic screening, spend 55,000 or even more than that. There is a better way of doing things to save you more money, to save you more effort, and of course to save you more time. So, so one more thing, okay, let's go back to this report over here. The interpretation, what does it mean by aneuploid? In human terms, that means it's unsuitable to be put back into the womb. Now, okay, so according to the University of Chicago, which is based in the United States, it's one of the most prestigious colleges in the US. So according to the medical school, they found that humans carry 1 to 2 lethal recessive mutations on average. Now, let me put it in human terms. It means that everyone, on average, will carry 1 to 2 harmful mutated DNA that can lead to disease. Now, let's have a look at what they say. If inherited from both parents, it can cause severe genetic disorder or death before reaching reproductive age, which is, you know, the commonly recognized 18 years old. Reports scientists from the University of Chicago and Columbia University, which is another very prestigious university from the US. Right. So, what are these diseases? Okay. Well, the most common one in Malaysia we heard of would be alpha thalassemia, spinal muscular dystrophy, PKU. All right. and then Tay-Sachs syndrome, Bloom syndrome, Joubert syndrome, all of these names that even us as scientists couldn't even remember. Right, so where does these diseases come from? We don't have them. So a lot of people have asked me about these questions over the past. Now, if you can remember what University of Chicago said, okay, healthy adults. So let's have a look at this over here, this picture over here, the black and gray part. So this is the husband and this is the wife. So the term recessive gene means hidden gene. Okay, inside you, the hidden gene. If let's say the husband and the wife each gets one of these hidden mutated gene that is going to cause muscular dystrophy, for example. So when they both combine together, there is a quarter, which is 25% chance of the baby getting the disease. Okay, which means that they will show the symptoms of muscular dystrophy like Steve Hawkins. And then there's half the chance, which is 50%, that these children will be getting the hidden gene, but without showing the symptoms, just like the parents, and only a quarter of the chance that they can run away without being affected. So have a think about this. When next time you walk on the street, if you see a special child, have a look at the parents. Do you think there is anything wrong with the parents? If there is, well, probably you won't be able to see them. Probably they won't even make it to the reproductive age to give birth to a baby or to have a baby. Anyway, so what we are afraid of is that, for example, because this baby, okay, let's say he has really got the muscular dystrophy hidden gene. Okay, let's come here. So when he grows up, he's about to get married. So there's one thing that everybody should be worried about. It is because not all genetic diseases will show symptoms immediately. Okay, for example, in medical terms, it's called the late onset. Okay, onset meaning the occurrence. So what happens if you'll be showing the symptoms of the genetic disease after, for example, 40 years old, by the time you would have gotten a baby already. Now, this is also one of the real cases which we, Verdure Healthcare, dealt with before, and it wasn't muscular dystrophy, it was alpha thalassemia, whereby the wife will be affected by alpha thalassemia and has already been affected. It's just that the symptoms not so serious, but the husband has got this hidden gene in him. So what we do is we hopefully will be able to wash away this genetic disease via genetic testing. And by that I mean, okay, when we get this couple tested, so we have to boost up their body condition in order to prepare them to go for an IVF cycle. So hopefully there will be enough embryos to go through the PGSP process, the pre-implantation genetic screening. Now, so what we hope to do is to select the baby that is carrying the genetic disease instead of being affected, because if they go through natural pregnancy, probably there will be a 50% chance of the baby being affected. Now, if we were to fast forward to their even next generation, so hopefully one day that this child, even with carrying the genetic disease, he or she will meet up with somebody who does not have this hidden gene that causes disease. So if they were to go through natural pregnancy, well, they can do that without any worries at all. Right. So speaking of that, speaking of genes, you might have a question. What exactly are genes? Now, what you're looking at in here is actually a piece of DNA. Of course, this is drawn. Now, every step of this ladder will have some information in order to produce a human being. So what's the difference between DNA and a gene? I'll explain to you in a while. Now, basically every single piece of our cell in the body, sorry, I should say every cell in our body will contain our genetic material. For example, the motor neurons, as I move, these are the cells that control my movement. They are called motor neurons. Sperm, egg, bone cell, intestinal cell, white blood cell, literally every kind of cell in the body will have genetic material. Now, if we were to select one of those cells, we cut that into half, it looks like a scene from Star Wars. It's very complicated, and please ignore all of these, otherwise we'll be having a certificate program in cellular biology. Anyway, so we will focus on this structure over here, and that's the command center for the cell, right? And inside that, there is something called the chromosome. Now, it might be a bit confusing, let's admit it. Genes or genetics is very complicated. So what's the relationship between the chromosome, a gene, and the DNA? They are the same thing, actually. So it's just that the level that you're describing will be different. A chromosome is like a pack of string. So imagine if you go to a hardware store and then you buy, a ball of string. You can't just use it like that, right? You have to somehow separate the strings from the rest. So then it looks like the gene in here. So whereby, okay, the gene, when being pulled out from the chromosome, you can see the coding inside it. So DNA and the gene, they mean exactly the same thing. So if we were to look at the deep level, actually, let me tell you a joke, whereby the ingredients needed, the types of ingredients needed to make a human being is less than that of a cake. All right. Anyway, why? Because in human being, you only need four types of ingredients: G, C, A, and T. You don't have to remember them, but I need to let you know that these exist. Anyway, it is the billions, right? Probably around 3 billion of these GCAT combination in order to make up a human being. Right, so if you can imagine us like a storybook whereby each chapter, each chromosome would be representing one chapter inside the book, and then the letters in the sentence would be the GCAT that we just saw. Now, in every normal or healthy human being, there must be 23 pairs of chromosomes in each and every one of the cells. So as you can see here, from the first chromosome all the way until the 22nd pair of chromosome, they need to look symmetric and identical. Okay? One from the mom, one from dad. So the length has to be the same. The materials, the patterns in there has to be the same. There was one case whereby there was a client around like a few months ago. Something from the chromosome 2 comes to chromosome 6, and something from the chromosome 6 went to chromosome 2. Now, this is something very serious. Why? Because his wife has miscarried more than 5 times, if I'm not wrong. So they just want to come here and get themselves checked out, and why is this happening? So I organized a test for them, and then we find this out. So what's the solution to this then? Well, of course, they have to go for IVF. They even have to go for the pre-implantation genetic screening. So, but the thing is that we would boost up their reproductive health, okay, via natural herbal medicine. So in order to get the hormones balanced, in order to boost up the egg quality, the sperm quality. So then when they meet all the parameters, we will send them off to our panel IVF clinic. And then because they are our panel, I would speak to the doctor, personally about this case. And then what happens is that they go through the process very smoothly, gone through the genetic screen, the embryo genetic screenings, and they are now having a very healthy baby. So imagine if they hadn't gone through this process, miscarriage would just happen again and again. Anyway, if we were to look at the very last pair of chromosomes over here, this is where it determines whether you are a boy, whether you are a girl. So because this is the so-called sex chromosome. If you have an X chromosome with a Y chromosome, you are a boy. But if you don't have a Y chromosome, you have two X instead, right, then you are obviously a girl. So there was another case with one of the couples whereby the wife, okay, has got one chromosome, one X chromosome missing, the entire piece. So instead of having 46 chromosomes into 23 pairs, she had only got 45 chromosomes. Now, as you can imagine already, this would cause some very serious problem. There's a name for this condition. It's called the Turner syndrome. So according to some studies in the United States, whereby people with Turner syndromes, they might not even have the basic and the most superficial reproductive organs. But this particular lady, when I received her report, I was shocked because the lady sat in front of me was completely normal. So I asked her about her menstrual cycles and all these rather sensitive and detailed stuff. She said, no, I'm fine. So, but still, because she failed many IVF cycles before, and that's the reason that she came to us along with her husband. So when we find out this problem, once again, we try to boost the quality of their reproductive health, so mainly aiming for better quality eggs as well as ovulation. So then when all parameters have been met via hormone and blood test, we send them once again back to the IVF center, but this time because their reproductive health had been boosted up, she was able to get around 12 eggs, healthy eggs, and then fertilized and end up getting around four healthy embryos, if I'm not wrong. So once again, she had to go through, the pre-implantation genetic screening, and then she ended up with a very healthy baby boy. Right. So now, honestly speaking, just now it was the most superficial and the most surface kind of like a genetic test. All right. So we are now going to look into what happens if there is just one bit of the genetic code missing. Can you imagine? Just now we talked about the ingredients of making human GCAT. What happens if there's just only a few being missing and it's enough to cause a condition already? Now, let me tell you something interesting. Actually, across all humans, we share 99.9% genes. It is just that maybe even less than 0.01% of the difference that cause all of these problems. Now, so this is called deletion. Okay, so it sounds just right. Deletion, something missing. Okay, so what would these cause? We will be looking at the 155 most common genetic diseases in Asia, which are these. Which are these. So once again, Tay-Sachs Bloom syndrome, or even sometimes Prader-Willi syndrome, which will be causing, a lot of problems for the child in their early childhood, such as, always being hungry, problems metabolizing food, things like that. But anyway, let's have a look at how come and where does genetic disease come from? They come from genetic mutations. Now, what exactly are genetic mutations? So, it is the structural change in the coding of the genes. That's called genetic mutations. So, there are three kinds of genetic mutations. Let's have a look at each and every one of those. So substitution mutation. Now remember just now we talked about the human genes being like a storybook. So imagine there's one sentence in the storybook, Sam met Batman. But what happens if you change a B to a C, Sam met Catman? Well, in the storybook, you'll probably still be able to read and understand it, but in terms of a human disease, it's not very nice. For example, sickle cell anemia means that, okay, the red blood cell, which is supposed to be rounded, has become a moon shape, Okay, so this is like a sickle that farmers use to snip grass. So, okay, if that's really the case, then these sickle cells will be blocking the blood flow, right? So when the blood vessels are being blocked, at minimum you will feel substantial pain. But sometimes if, let's say, it blocks the heart's blood vessel or the brain's blood vessel, then obviously something more serious will happen. But on the other hand, if we have the same sentence from the storybook, let's have a look at what is insertion mutation. For example, Sam met Batman, but if we were to add any letters into any space, okay, it becomes something like this. Are you able to read what's this? I believe from Sam onwards, nothing will be understandable. This is exactly what happens in the body as well. So when something doesn't make sense are being produced, such as the Huntington's disease, meaning to say that there is a very big hole in the brain, like this one. So this is a normal brain, there shouldn't be any, spaces in between. Okay, so obviously this would affect almost everything in the child, including the movements and digestive system, and etc., etc. So Fragile X syndrome is another type of disease resulting in this kind of from this kind of mutation, whereby the chromosome is supposed to be really nice and smooth, but somehow there are bits and pieces being mutated. Anyway, and also muscular dystrophy belongs to this category of genetic mutation. And of course, the famous Steve Hawkins, I believe some of you might have heard of him. He has got muscular dystrophy, and it is also a miracle that he's able to live that long. Anyway, there is one more kind of genetic mutation that's called deletion mutation, just now we've heard about. So same sentence, imagine if you cut away any letters in between, it will still not be understandable. And that's why if we were to have Turner syndrome, the entire piece of chromosome being missing, so that's a very obvious lesion. DeGeorge syndrome, okay, or so-called cleft lips or the cleft palate, and it will also affect the intelligence of the baby. Cystic fibrosis, which means that the mucus in the lungs would be stiffened, okay, so it's sort of like a bit of a glue, okay, and then it will affect the lungs, respiratory function, as well as the digestive system. And if, let's say, guys get this kind of a thing, then there will be a major problem. Why? Because we will also lack, meaning we will not be having any sperm tube, or the fancy word is vas deferens. Okay, you can search that up again and see where exactly it is. Basically, this organ over here will transport the sperm from where it is made to where it's supposed to go. Anyway, obviously, if you lack this organ, then you will face a fertility problem. And this is exactly also what happened to one of our clients who failed many IVF cycles. And the reason of failure is that the doctor wasn't able to extract any sperm from his sample. So when we test for this, it reveals that there's really one problem with this gene that will lead to this disease. So still, we have to treat his body condition because there was a lot of problem other than this. So when he's ready, we send him to IVF, and then we have to do some surgery to extract the sperm directly from the factory. Right. Anyway, okay, let's change the atmosphere a little bit. We talk about so many diseases. Anyway, as I mentioned just now, we all will get some sort of genetic mutation. But some mutations won't won't affect you, by the means of having disease. Well, if you can have a look at, Westerners, they have all different kinds of hair color, and that's because the MC1R gene have different kind of variants. Eye color, dimples are also as a result of genetic mutation. So when you see somebody with dimples, don't say that, haha, you've got genetic mutation, just in case you may misunderstand. Anyway, right, so what's the next step? So genetic tests, there are a lot of genetic tests out there. However, you need to seek professional advice before taking any of these genetic tests on your own, especially. So because genetic test is something very powerful, if you receive a report without anyone explaining about what exactly they are, what they mean to you, then it will probably generate more doubts and questions than you already have. So when you receive genetic tests, for example, if you are facing infertility problems or if you are having difficulties getting your IVF cycles going, so we will probably organize something called the infertility genetic test for you to see what is causing you infertility, right? So when we get that, we'll be able to assume a direction, or not assume, but to set a direction in order to help you cut costs, cut time and effort to your fertility journey. But if you are not having any genetic problem, not having any fertility problems, or you're just planning to conceive, then we'll organize something called the pre-pregnancy DNA screening for you, just in case, like what the University of Chicago has said, every human being would have 1 to 2 healthy genes, and then we just need to see if, let's say, the husband and the wife's mutation match together. If they really match, then we will have to use embryo genetic screening to avoid tragedy. Anyway, so if your family history has touch with cancer, then cancer genes can be passed on to the next generation as well. So one of the most common cancer gene is breast cancer, or in short, BRCA. So you can search that up in Google as well after our session. So then this BRCA thingy, if let's say touch wood you have them, the chances of you having breast cancer would be up to 80% throughout your lifetime, meaning from the time you're born all the way until 70 years old. So 80% chance, that's quite high. And the worst thing is that this cancer gene can be inherited, meaning to say that it will be passed down to your next generation. So imagine if it's a daughter that you'll be having, if she gets this gene, in her lifetime, she will also have an 80% chance of developing breast cancer. But that's not it, because breast cancer gene, besides breast cancer, it can also cause ovarian cancer, pancreas cancer, some other cancers such as we have breast cancer, we have ovarian cancer, pancreas cancer, colon cancer. In male, it can also cause prostate cancer. So all of these problems all together at once. So we work together the best we can to avoid tragedies from happening. Well, anyway, if let's say, of course, if you have gone through all these genetic testing and no mutations have been found, then obviously you can go through natural pregnancy, without the worries. So that's why, to be very honest with you, having a healthy baby and having the correct direction on a fertility journey is not something easy. That's why Verdure Healthcare, we have been in this industry for over 17 years. And our partner includes some of the most famous IVF centers like Alpha Fertility Center, TMC, Thompson Hospital, Sunway. So these are our most commonly selected panel to send our clients to in case if a genetic mutation or if there's a need for IVF. So we work with other organizations as well, like PATH Lab and BP Lab, in order to monitor our clients' progress in terms of the reproductive health. And I would also like to use this opportunity to introduce our new partner, Sonovision, whereby they are offering the most advanced ultrasound screening services in Malaysia. Well, and also our DNA laboratories include genomics as well as DNA lab. So names are quite straightforward. Anyway, so in terms of our service, Verdure Healthcare, who are we? So we are, a fertility consultant, whereby if you are facing especially fertility problems, you come to us, let us, give you an advice on why are you having this problem. So we might arrange genetic tests for you if there's a need to, or if you're planning, a pregnancy, and if you are very worried about if you are having any kind of genetic mutations hidden in your body that can cause diseases in the next generation, especially cancer genes, do come to us, let us work out a solution for you so that you will be, on a very pleasant fertility journey. So our team includes Dr. Terrington, who is the chief physician, and she's also doing Facebook Live, so you can subscribe to our Facebook pages and like us so that we'll be able to notify you if we have any new Facebook Live sessions. As for me, actually, I am a scientist. I'm not a doctor. However, I've received a professional certificate in histology and also pathology in Tsinghua University, and I've also taken my studies to Peking University for pathophysiology, which is a study of how diseases will affect us. But anyway, a lot of people have this misconception. They tell me that, oh, Adam, if I see a doctor or if I see people like you, a scientist, then you guys should know about genetics, right? That is strictly wrong, because genetics requires a very specialized training. So not every doctor, not every scientist would know about it. So when you choose genetic tests, you need to go through the proper channel. So yeah. And anyway, if you're worrying about cancer genetics, we will also be able to provide you prevention method. However, once again, the pure genetic training is not enough. We have to go through another level of specialty, what we call subspecialty, in order to help you deal with this problem. So that's why I've taken my studies to Harvard in studying as well as researching about cancer genomics and precision oncology. Anyway, so I would like to also use this opportunity to thank you so much for all of your support despite the COVID-19 pandemic. You guys are being so supportive to us. So without your support, it's impossible for us to be able to come up with all these services and also these advancement and contribution to the Malaysian fertility technology. So we've also received a membership from the American Society for Reproductive Medicine due to our contribution in this field. So yeah. Anyway, we've spoken a lot about genes and diseases and, the pathology of them. So all you need to remember is that your genes will determine your baby's lifetime health. So it is very important to prevent genetic disease from happening instead of, waiting for it to happen, only then taking your child to a pediatrician. So yes, prevention is better than solution. Anyway, so it has come to a conclusion for our Facebook Live session today. So this recording will be in the form of a video for you to look back on our Facebook page as well as on YouTube. So on our YouTube channel, please subscribe and like us. Please support us, and then we'll be able to update you with the latest news and heads up for Malaysian fertility technology. Thank you very much.